The ancient canyon walls held secrets older than time itself. Through swirling dust, two hawks moved silently across rocks that burned beneath the Arizona sun. His grandfather's voice guided him, not to game trails or water signs, but to something unexpected. There, crumpled against stone, lay a white woman, her lips cracked from thirst, her eyes hollow with hunger. His people would say to leave her. The white settlers had brought nothing but death to the Apache. Yet something deeper than tribal memory stirred within him as he knelt beside her failing form. Could mercy between sworn enemies survive in a land where everything struggled merely to exist? Could these two souls from different worlds forge something stronger than the hatred that divided their people? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Two hawks crouched, lower, studying the white woman. Her dress, once blue perhaps, had faded to the color of tired sky, torn and dusty from days in the wilderness. Her face, beneath the grime and sunburn, appeared young, maybe 25 summers. Dark hair, matted with sweat and dirt, framed. Features sharp with hunger. Her breathing came shallow but steady. Shyla, he whispered, the Apache word for brother or sister. His grandfather's voice seemed to echo through the canyon. All who breathe the same air share in the great mystery. Remember this, my grandson, when hatred clouds your vision. He reached for his water gourd, its smooth surface worn by generations of hands. The sacred vessel had belonged to his grandfather, Tall Pine, the tribe's most respected medicine man. Two hawks had been 12 when the old man placed it in his hand, saying, "Water is life. How you share it tells the story of your spirit." The woman's eyes fluttered open as his shadow fell across her face. Sunlight caught her irises, the pale blue of morning sky. Fear sparked in them as she registered his presence. She tried to scramble backward, but weakness betrayed her. A small sound escaped her parched lips, half gasp, half whimper. Two hawks remained still, one hand extended, palm open. "Water," he said in English, one of the few words he knew from trading post encounters. He lifted the gourd slightly. Recognition flickered in her gaze. Desperation overcame fear. She nodded once. He moved forward slowly, as he would approach a wounded deer. Kneeling beside her, he gently lifted her head with one hand, while bringing the gourd to her lips with the other. "Slow," he cautioned, though she likely didn't understand. "Drink slow." She sipped, coughed, then drank again more carefully. Water spilled down her chin, darkening the collar of her dress. Two hawks allowed her several swallows before pulling the gourd away. Too much water too quickly would make her sick. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice like autumn leaves rustling. Two hawks nodded, understanding her gratitude, if not her exact words. He sat back on his heels, considering his options. The tribal council had been clear: avoid all contact with white settlers. Too many Apache had died from their diseases, their bullets, their broken promises. His people had retreated deeper into the canyons, away from wagon trails and cavalry patrols. Yet here was one of them, alone and dying. He studied her again. No gun, no possessions beyond the clothes she wore. A thin gold band circled her finger, a marriage token. Where was her husband, her people? "Sarah," she said suddenly, pointing weakly to herself. "Sarah, Sarah," he repeated, the name strange on his tongue. He touched his own chest. "Two hawks." "Two hawks," she echoed, the words separated awkwardly. A small connection, fragile as spider silk, stretched between them. Two hawks rose and moved to the canyon wall, where small plants grew in the shadow of rock. His hands worked quickly, gathering leaves from a scrubby bush. He returned, crushed the leaves between his fingers, and offered them to Sarah. She hesitated. "Water. In leaves," he said haltingly. "Good." Understanding crossed her face. She accepted. The crushed vegetation, and placed it in her mouth. Immediately, her eyes widened at the moisture released. Two Hawks nodded approval. He sat beside her, giving her time to rest while he thought. The hidden spring lay half a day's journey through narrow canyon passages, paths known only to his people. Taking her there meant revealing sacred knowledge, yet leaving her meant certain death. The sun inched across the sky, shadows shifting with the passing hours. Two Hawks felt the weight of decision pressing upon him. His father had been a respected warrior, killed by cavalry soldiers 3 summers ago. What would he say to this moment? Sarah's breathing had steadied, the water and plant moisture bringing temporary strength. She watched him with cautious eyes that held neither hatred nor trust, merely the wariness of the vulnerable. Two Hawks rose. Decision made. "Come," he said, extending his hand. "Water place." Sarah stared at his offered hand. For a moment, he thought she would refuse. Then, with visible effort, she reached up and placed her fingers in his. Her skin felt cool despite the desert heat, too cool for health. He helped her stand, steadying her as she swayed. She was taller than Apache women, her frame made more angular by hunger. When she took a step, her legs buckled. Without hesitation, Two Hawks caught her, supporting her weight against his side. "Thank you," she said again, the words clearer now. "Why? Help me." Two Hawks looked into her questioning eyes. He lacked the English to explain about his grandfather's teachings, about the balance of all living things, about the voice that had drawn him to this place. Instead, he simply tapped his chest above his heart, then pointed to the endless sky. Something in her expression softened. She nodded slightly, as if understanding transcended their language barrier. Together, they began the slow journey toward the hidden spring, leaving behind only footprints in the swirling canyon dust. The journey through the canyon labyrinth tested them both. Sarah stumbled frequently, her strength fleeting despite Two Hawks' support. When she could go no further, he fashioned a travois from juniper branches and his buckskin shirt. He pulled her across the roughest terrain, choosing their path carefully, between narrow passages that would have remained invisible to untrained eyes. By midday, the heat had become a living presence. Two Hawks stopped in the shadow of a towering rock formation, its red surface glowing like fire in the sunlight. From a small pouch at his waist, he removed a bundle of dried herbs bound with yucca fiber. He offered Sarah water, then placed a small portion of the herbs under her tongue. "Medicine," he explained, mimicking strength by flexing his arm. Sarah accepted without hesitation now. Necessity had overwhelmed caution. The bitter herbs spread warmth through her limbs, temporarily masking her exhaustion. "Where? Family?" Two Hawks asked. His limited English stretched to form the question. Sarah's eyes clouded. She pointed to the western horizon. "Wagon train," she said, then made a walking motion with her fingers. "Lost. 3 days." She held up 3 fingers to confirm. Two Hawks nodded, understanding. He had seen the wagon trains, great lumbering beasts carrying white settlers across Apache land. His people watched from hidden places as these intruders cut trees, killed game, and poisoned water sources with their waste. "Apache," Sarah said suddenly, making a sweeping motion with her arm. "Attack wagons?" Two Hawks' expression remained impassive, but inwardly he tensed. "Different Apache," he answered truthfully. The Chiricahua bands were many, with different leaders. Some raided aggressively, while his smaller band had retreated deeper into the mountains, choosing isolation over conflict. Sarah studied his face, searching for truth. After a moment, she nodded acceptance. "Husband?" Two Hawks inquired, pointing to the gold band on her finger. Sarah's face tightened. She shook her head. "Dead before." She made a gesture like shooting a gun, then closed her eyes and tilted her head, mimicking death. "Soldiers, not Apache." Two Hawks raised his eyebrows in surprise. White men killing white men. Their ways remained mysterious to him despite years of observation. They resumed their journey as afternoon shadows lengthened. Two hawks sensed Sarah watching him as he identified plants along their path, explaining their uses through gestures, this one for fever, that one for wounds, another to attract deer. When he pointed out a small, inconspicuous cactus and mimicked stomach pain followed by relief, Sarah actually smiled, a brief brightening that transformed her haggard features. "My grandmother," she said, "knew plants too." She pantomimed an old woman gathering and preparing herbs, a bridge formed between them, the shared knowledge of Earth's gifts. As the sun approached the western canyon walls, they entered a narrow passage barely wide enough for the travois. The walls rose hundreds of feet, creating perpetual twilight at the bottom. The air cooled noticeably. The sound of water, faint but unmistakable, echoed ahead. The passage widened suddenly into a hidden valley no larger than a settler's field. At its center, a spring bubbled from between massive boulders, forming a crystal pool before meandering away as a small stream. Cottonwood trees, rare treasures in this arid land, provided dappled shade. Birds called from their branches. Sarah gasped at the unexpected beauty. Two hawks helped her from the travois to sit beneath the largest cottonwood, her eyes fixed on the water, its surface reflecting the deepening blue of the sky above. "Sacred place," Two Hawks said solemnly, placing his hand over his heart. "Apache only." Sarah looked at him with sudden understanding of his sacrifice. Bringing her here violated tribal taboo. "Why?" she asked simply. Two Hawks gathered water in a pottery bowl he retrieved from a small shelter built against the canyon wall. He brought it to Sarah before answering. "Life," he said finally, gesturing to encompass the spring, the sky, and both of them. "All life." As Sarah drank from the bowl, Two Hawks unwrapped his herb bundle completely. Inside were dozens of carefully dried plants, each with distinctive colors and textures. He selected several and began preparing a healing mixture, grinding them between smooth stones with practiced movements. The sun vanished behind the canyon rim, painting the sky in brilliant orange and purple. Two Hawks lit a small fire with practiced efficiency. The flickering light revealed ancient markings on the canyon walls, handprints, spirals, and animal forms etched by ancestors whose names were remembered only in sacred songs. Sarah watched as Two Hawks applied the poultice to her sunburned skin and bleeding feet. His touch was gentle but confident, his movements those of someone thoroughly trained in healing arts. When he finished, he offered a different herb mixture steeped in hot water. "Drink," he encouraged. "Sleep medicine." Sarah hesitated only briefly. Before drinking, the liquid tasted of earth and sage, bitter yet somehow comforting. Almost immediately, her eyelids grew heavy. As she drifted towards sleep, she murmured, "Why do you know English words?" "Trading post," Two Hawks answered. "Listen, learn." He pointed to his ears and head. Sarah nodded sleepily. The last thing she saw before sleep claimed her was Two Hawks sitting cross-legged by the fire, his face solemn in prayer or meditation, the sacred water reflecting starlight behind him. Dawn painted the hidden valley in gold and amber light. Sarah woke to find herself covered with a rabbit-skin blanket. Her body ached, but the desperate weakness had receded. Nearby, Two Hawks knelt by the spring, his morning prayers a soft murmur in the Apache tongue. Sarah studied him openly. In the clear morning light, she noticed details missed during yesterday's struggle for survival. He was younger than she'd first thought, perhaps 30. His black hair, longer than Apache warriors typically wore it, was tied back with a leather thong adorned with a single hawk feather. A scar ran along his right forearm, old and well-healed. Around his neck hung a small medicine pouch decorated with intricate beadwork. When he finished his prayers, Two Hawks brought her a wooden bowl filled with a mixture of dried berries, nuts, and what looked like pounded jerky. "Eat," he encouraged. "Strength food." Sarah ate slowly, savoring each bite. Real food after days of starvation tasted impossibly good. Two Hawks watched with approval, then beckoned her to follow when she finished. Can walk? He asked. Sarah tested her legs. The herbal poultice had worked wonders on her blistered feet. Yes, she answered. Better now. He led her along the stream to where it disappeared into a narrow crevice in the canyon wall. Beside this natural doorway, ancient images covered the red stone surface. Two Hawks placed his hand gently on a faded handprint, clearly smaller than his own. Ancestors, he said reverently. Very old. He pointed to spiral patterns above the handprints, story symbols. Sarah moved closer, fascinated. The petroglyphs reminded her of illustrations in her family Bible, simpler perhaps, but conveying similar power. Our stories, she said, mimicking opening a book. She traced a cross in the dirt with her finger. God's stories. Two Hawks studied her drawing. Your spirit way, he said, nodding, understanding. He pointed to the spirals again. Apache spirit way, different words. He touched his chest above his heart. Same place. The insight surprised Sarah. Pastor Wilkins had always preached that Indians were godless savages in need of Christian salvation. Yet here was Two Hawks, recognizing a commonality she'd never considered. He traced the petroglyphs with his fingertip, translating their meaning through gesture and his limited English. A great flood, a time of hunger, the coming of horses. Sarah listened, entranced by stories etched in stone before her grandparents were born. When Two Hawks finished, Sarah knelt and smoothed a patch of sand. Using her finger, she drew simple figures, a man, a woman, a child. My family, she explained. She added a wagon and oxen. Going to California. She drew mountains and a sun. New home. Two Hawks watched intently. Why California? He asked. Sarah considered how to explain. She mimicked digging, then formed her fingers into a shiny object. Gold, she said. My husband. She paused, the grief still fresh. Thomas wanted gold. Understanding dawned in Two Hawks' expression. Gold fever, he said, using a trader's phrase. Many white men come, dig mountains, kill for yellow rock. Sarah nodded sadly. Yes, Thomas, she mimed, shooting again. Other white men killed him, for gold. She brushed her hand across the sand, erasing her drawings. Now I go to my sister, San Francisco. Two Hawks absorbed this information silently. After a moment, he gestured for her to follow him to another part of the canyon. Here, a natural alcove in the rock contained a stone-lined fire pit and simple cooking implements, evidence of long habitation. My grandfather place, Two Hawks explained. Medicine man, teach me healing ways. He picked up a small clay pot containing dark pigment. Story medicine. With practiced movements, he applied a small amount of the pigment to his fingertip and added a new mark to the wall. A simple bird in flight. You, he said, pointing to Sarah, then to the bird. Journey. The gesture moved her unexpectedly. This stranger had not only saved her life, but was now adding her story to his people's sacred record. Thank you, she said, the words inadequate, for the emotion behind them. Two Hawks nodded acknowledgement, then pointed to her empty water bowl. More? Sarah smiled, her first genuine smile in days. Yes, please. As Two Hawks refilled her bowl, a thought struck her. Two Hawks, she said, causing him to look up questioningly. Your people, she gestured around the canyon. Won't they be angry? Me here? His expression grew serious. Yes, he admitted. Sacred place. No outsiders. He handed her the filled bowl. But grandfather say he struggled for the English words, then simply pointed upward. Spirit bigger than rules. Sarah sipped the cool spring water. Your grandfather sounds wise. Two Hawks' face softened at the compliment. Wisest man. Teach me see with heart, not just eyes. He tapped his chest. Important medicine. A comfortable silence fell between them. Sarah realized with surprise that her fear of this man had vanished completely. In its place grew something unexpected. Respect. perhaps even trust. The moment broke when Two Hawks suddenly tensed, his head turning sharply toward the canyon entrance. His expression hardened as he raised one hand for silence. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. "Or what is it?" she whispered. Two Hawks' answer came as a single ominous word. "Riders." Two Hawks moved with silent urgency, gathering his medicine pouch and water gourd. He motioned for Sarah to retreat deeper into the alcove, where shadows would conceal her presence. His finger pressed against his lips, an unmistakable command for silence. From the narrow entrance to the hidden valley came the soft sound of footfalls on stone. Not the heavy tread of cavalry boots, but the nearly silent approach of Apache scouts. Two Hawks positioned himself by the spring, deliberately visible, one hand resting casually on his knife hilt. Three warriors appeared like shadows materializing from the canyon walls. Their faces were painted with red ochre, the mark of a hunting party. Each carried a bow and a knife. The lead scout wore a single eagle feather that marked him as Pindalikoyi, enemy tracker. The scout's name was Running Fox, son of a respected elder and known for his uncompromising hatred of white settlers. His eyes narrowed at the sight of Two Hawks. "Dagoti," Two Hawks greeted them calmly in Apache. "Your hunting brings you far from the summer camp." Running Fox stepped forward, his gaze sweeping the hidden valley with practiced precision. "And what hunting brings the grandson of Tall Pine to the sacred spring alone?" His voice carried subtle accusation. "Medicine gathering," Two Hawks answered, gesturing to his herb bundle. "The summer moon brings the flowering of healing plants." Yo. Second warrior Grey Wolf sniffed the air suspiciously. "You have made fire recently," he observed, "and cooked meat." "I have," Two Hawks acknowledged. "The medicine ways require cleansing and prayer. I have been here since yesterday's dawn." Running Fox took another step forward, his eyes never leaving Two Hawks' face. "Strange that you would miss the council meeting." Chief Black Knife spoke. "Of the cavalry movements, all warriors were summoned." Two Hawks maintained his composed expression, though inwardly he cursed his misfortune. "I did not know. The spirits called me to gather medicine. Our people will need healing herbs if conflict comes." Running Fox might have accepted this explanation had fate not intervened. A small sound, the barest whisper of movement, came from the alcove where Sarah hid. The warrior's reaction was instant. His bow came up, arrow nocked in one fluid motion, aimed not at Two Hawks, but at the shadowed recess. "Who hides in the sacred place?" he demanded, voice hard as flint. Two Hawks made a split-second decision. "Lower your weapon, brother. It is one under my protection." "Show yourself," Running Fox called out in Apache, his bow unwavering. Two Hawks switched to English. "Sarah, come, slowly." The silence stretched painfully before Sarah emerged from the shadows, her blue dress stark against the red canyon walls. The warrior's expressions transformed from suspicion to shock, then to anger. "Inda!" Grey Wolf spat the word for enemy, or white person. Running Fox's bowstring tightened, his face contorted with rage. "You bring a white woman to the sacred spring? Have you lost your mind, son of stalking coyote?" "She was dying," Two Hawks replied calmly, though he had positioned himself subtly between Sarah and the drawn bow. "I found her abandoned in the Western Canyon. The medicine ways teach that all life—" "She is Inda," Running Fox interrupted. "Her people kill our children, poison our waters, steal our lands, and you bring her to our most sacred place?" The third warrior, until now silent, spoke. His name was Stone Knife, older than the others and known for his wisdom. Two Hawks has always followed the old ways faithfully. Perhaps we should hear his reasons. Running Fox didn't lower his bow, but he did turn his glare back to Two Hawks. "Explain this violation of our most sacred law." Sarah stood perfectly still, understanding nothing of their words, but everything in their tones and postures. Her eyes remained fixed on the arrow aimed in her direction. Two Hawks straightened to his full height. My grandfather taught me that the Great Spirit sees no difference in the color of skin. This woman was abandoned, starving, near death. Would you have me walk past suffering when I have the power to heal? What kind of medicine man would I become? A living one, Running Fox retorted. Her people would not hesitate to kill you. They see an Apache and reach for their guns. Perhaps, Two Hawks acknowledged, but I am not them. I follow the way of my ancestors, not the way of revenge. Stone Knife nodded slowly. The Old Ones taught that how we treat our enemies reveals our true strength. Running Fox's expression darkened further. The Old Ones did not face rifles and cannon. They did not see their children die of white man's diseases. He turned to Sarah, speaking in halting English. You, woman, your people nearby? Sarah shook her head. No, lost, alone. She gestured toward Two Hawks. He saved me. Running Fox's laugh held no humor. Saved you for what? To lead more soldiers to our hidden places? To watch our women and children die? Two Hawks stepped fully in front of Sarah now. She has done nothing to harm our people. The crime is mine if our laws are broken. Take me before the council, but allow her to recover her strength before sending her away. Grey Wolf looked uncomfortable. The council must hear of this. Chief Black Knife will decide. Stone Knife nodded agreement. The woman comes too. The chief must see who causes such trouble. Running Fox finally lowered his bow, though his eyes remained cold. Gather your things, he ordered Two Hawks. You return to the summer camp immediately. He turned to Sarah. You too, white woman. If you try to escape. He drew his finger across his throat in universal meaning, as Sarah collected the few items Two Hawks had given her. She whispered, What's happening? We go to my village, Two Hawks explained quietly. Chief will decide. Decide what? Fear edged her voice. Two Hawks met her eyes steadily. Your fate. My fate. He offered a small, reassuring nod. Truth is strong. Have courage. The journey to the Apache camp was tense and silent. Running Fox led the way, with Stone Knife behind. Two Hawks and Sarah. Grey Wolf brought up the rear, his bow always ready. The easy companionship of the morning had vanished, replaced by the weight of tribal judgment to come. As they traveled, Two Hawks recalled his father's words from long ago. A warrior makes difficult choices knowing that consequences will follow. As surely as night follows day, face those consequences with the same courage you showed in making your choice. He had chosen to save Sarah. Now they would face the consequences together. The Apache summer camp came into view by mid-afternoon, a collection of wickiups arranged in a half-circle against a cliff face. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Children played among the dwellings, their laughter falling silent as the unusual procession approached. Women paused in their work, men gathered with questioning expressions. Running Fox announced their arrival, loudly in Apache. Two Hawks brings an enemy to our sacred spring. He breaks our oldest law. As they walked through the suddenly silent camp, Sarah stayed close to Two Hawks, feeling the weight of hostile stares. An elderly woman emerged from a larger wickiup at the center of the camp. Her white hair and dignified bearing marked her as someone of importance. My mother, Two Hawks murmured to Sarah. Wise raven. The old woman's eyes narrowed at the sight of Sarah, then moved questioningly to her son. Two Hawks straightened his shoulders. The time for judgment had come. The council fire burned low as the Apache elders gathered in solemn assembly. 12 men and women formed a circle around the flames, their faces illuminated by flickering light and shadow. At the center of the circle stood Chief Black Knife, a man whose 60 summers had etched deep lines into his weathered face. In his hand, he held the speaking staff, a length of lightning-struck oak adorned with eagle feathers and sacred beads. Two Hawks and Sarah sat at the edge of the circle, flanked by Running Fox and Stone Knife. The camp had fallen silent, though curious eyes watched from the darkness beyond the firelight. Two Hawks, son of Stalking Coyote, grandson of Tall Pine, Chief Blackknife began, his voice carrying the weight of authority. You stand before the council accused of breaking our most sacred law. You have brought an outsider, an Indar woman, to the hidden spring. How do you answer? Two Hawks rose slowly, his posture respectful but unrepentant. I speak truth to my chief and my people, he replied in Apache. 3 days ago, the spirits led me to the Western Canyon. There I found this woman near death from thirst and hunger. I gave her water from my grandfather's gourd. I offered healing from my medicine bundle. You could have left water and food, interrupted Greystone, the eldest council member. Why bring her to the sacred spring? She would not have survived. Alone, Two Hawks answered simply. Her weakness was too great. Running Fox stepped forward. He speaks of spirits guiding him, yet breaks our oldest taboo. Perhaps his time with the traders has weakened his commitment to our ways. Murmurs rippled through the council. Two Hawks waited for them to subside before continuing. My grandfather taught me that medicine power comes with responsibility. All breath is sacred, he would say. The Great Spirit gives life. Only the Great Spirit should take it away. Two Hawks gestured toward Sarah. This woman has done our people no harm. She was separated from her wagon train, lost in our canyons. All white settlers harm us by their presence, countered Running Fox. They bring disease. They kill our game. They poison our waters. Chief Blackknife raised the speaking staff, silencing the growing debate. He turned to Sarah, who had been watching the proceedings with wary incomprehension. Woman! He addressed her in halting English. Your name? Sarah, she answered, her voice steady despite her fear. Sarah Miller. Why you in Apache land? The chief asked. Sarah glanced at Two Hawks before answering. My husband died, going to sister in California, wagon train. She struggled for the words. Indians attack, not Apache, she added quickly. Different, I ran, got lost. Chief Blackknife studied her intently. You have husband gun? Fight Apache? Sarah shook her head. No gun, no fight. She hesitated, then added, my husband was killed by white men, for gold. This revelation caused a stir among the council members. White people killing each other for yellow metal was a concept both familiar and foreign to them. The chief turned to an elderly woman whose face bore the tattoo marks of a medicine woman. Morning Star, examine this woman. See if she speaks truth. Morning Star approached Sarah without hesitation. Her gnarled fingers gently took Sarah's hands, turning them over to examine the palms. She noted the calluses from work, not weapon handling. Her fingers moved to Sarah's face, tilting it toward the firelight, looking deeply into her eyes. Stand, the old woman commanded in English. Sarah complied, standing straight despite her exhaustion. Morning Star circled her slowly, noting her bearing, her posture, the wear on her clothes. Finally, she returned to the chief. She speaks truth. Morning Star declared in Apache. Her hands know work, not war. Her eyes hold grief, not hatred. She is no threat to our people. Two Hawks' mother, Wise Raven, who had been silent until now, rose to speak. My son has always honored our ways, she said. If he brought this woman to the sacred spring, he did. So, with a pure heart, the grandson of Tall Pine would not dishonor his ancestors' teachings. Her words carried weight. Many nodded in agreement. Chief Blackknife considered all he had heard, his expression unreadable. Finally, he planted the speaking staff firmly in the earth between them. The council has heard. Now I speak. He fixed Two Hawks with a penetrating gaze. You broke our law to save a life. This shows both disobedience and honor. He turned to Sarah. White woman, you live because of Apache mercy. Remember this when you return to your people. Two Hawks stepped forward. Chief Blackknife, she is too weak to travel alone. The nearest trading post is 5 days' journey. The chief's expression hardened. You ask more, after breaking our sacred law? I ask only what my grandfather would ask, Two Hawks replied steadily. That we show the true strength of Apache spirit, by helping one who cannot help herself. A long silence followed. The council members exchanged glances, some approving, others dubious. "The woman may stay until the next full moon," Chief Blackknife finally decreed. "She will regain her strength. Then she must leave our lands." He pointed the speaking staff directly at Two Hawks. "You, grandson of Tall Pine, are responsible for her. If she brings harm to our people, both your lives are forfeit." Two Hawks bowed his head in acceptance. "I hear my chief's wisdom." Sarah, understanding the tone if not the words, recognized that some decision had been reached. "What happens?" she whispered to Two Hawks. "You stay," he answered quietly, "until next full moon, then you must go." Relief flooded her features. "Thank you," she said, then repeated the words, looking directly at Chief Blackknife. "Thank you." The chief acknowledged her gratitude with a slight nod, then raised the speaking staff. "The council is ended." As the elders dispersed, Two Hawks' mother approached them. Her face remained stern, but her eyes held a hint of compassion. "Come," she said to Sarah in English. "You sleep my home tonight." That night, lying on a bed of soft hides in Wise Raven's wickiup, Sarah listened to the unfamiliar sounds of the Apache camp. Distant singing, the calls of night birds, the soft conversations, in a language she couldn't understand. Despite the strangeness, despite the hostility she'd faced, she felt an unexpected sense of safety. Outside, Two Hawks sat alone by the dying council fire, contemplating the path that lay ahead. Dawn arrived with the soft pat-pat-pat of women's hands shaping corn dough. Sarah woke to find Wise Raven already at work, her experienced fingers quickly forming perfect tortillas. Without speaking, the older woman nodded toward a clay water jar, giving Sarah permission to refresh herself. The previous day's council decision had spread throughout the camp. As Sarah stepped outside the wickiup, Apache women paused in their morning tasks to stare. Children peeked from behind their mothers' skirts, curiosity overcoming caution. No hostility showed in their faces, merely wary observation of this strange outsider with pale skin and blue dress. Two Hawks approached, carrying a bundle. "My mother will teach you today," he said by way of greeting. "I go with hunting party." He handed her the bundle, a simple Apache dress of soft deerskin and a pair of moccasins. "Better for here than your clothes." Sarah accepted the garments, gratefully. Her own dress was torn and filthy from her ordeal in the canyons. "Thank you. Will they—" She gestured vaguely toward the watching women. "Will they accept me?" Two Hawks considered. "Some yes, some no. Show respect, work hard, learn ways." He pointed to a clay cooking pot near the fire pit. "My sister's. She married last spring, moved to husband's family. Mother says you use." Before Sarah could respond, Wise Raven emerged from the wickiup. Though she spoke little English, her gestures were clear. Sarah would help with the morning cooking. The older woman's expression brooked no argument. "Go change," Two Hawks translated. "Unnecessarily, then work." The deerskin dress felt strange against Sarah's skin, softer than her cotton clothing, molding to her body like a second skin. The moccasins, though slightly large, offered blessed relief to her still tender feet. When she emerged in her new attire, several of the younger women nodded approval. Wise Raven set Sarah to grinding corn with a stone mano and metate. The work was harder than it looked, requiring a steady rocking motion that soon had Sarah's arms aching. Nearby, Apache women worked efficiently at similar tasks, occasionally exchanging words that Sarah couldn't understand, sometimes glancing her way. A young woman about Sarah's age approached, carrying a basket of berries. Unlike the others, her face showed open hostility. She spoke sharply to Wise Raven, gesturing toward Sarah with evident disapproval. Wise Raven replied calmly, but firmly. The younger woman's expression remained defiant, but she retreated, casting one last glare at Sarah. "Swift deer," Wise Raven said to Sarah, pointing to the retreating woman. "No like white woman. Father killed by soldiers." Sarah nodded, understanding. "I'm sorry," she said, knowing Wise Raven might not comprehend her words, but hoping her tone conveyed sincere regret. The morning progressed with lessons in Apache cooking. Wise Raven demonstrated how to mix the corn dough with wild herbs for flavor, how to tell when the cooking stones were the right temperature, how to wrap meat in leaves before placing it in the fire pit. Sarah watched carefully, mimicking the older woman's movements. Her first attempt at making tortillas produced misshapen lumps that drew amused glances from the other women. Her second try was better. By the third, she managed a recognizable, if imperfect, round shape that earned a nod of approval from Wise Raven. Near midday, the hunting party returned. Two hawks carried a young deer across his shoulders. Sarah watched as he expertly field-dressed the animal behind the wickiups, wasting nothing: meat for eating, hide for tanning, sinew for sewing, bones for tools. Several children gathered to watch, among them a small boy who stared at Sarah with unconcealed curiosity. The boy approached her hesitantly, touching her arm and then looking at his fingers as if expecting the whiteness to rub off. Sarah smiled. The boy said something in Apache, his voice serious. "He asks if you are a ghost woman," translated an unexpected voice. Sarah turned to find Stone Knife standing nearby, his expression neutral. "Many Apache children hear stories of pale spirits who steal disobedient children. Tell him I'm just a woman," Sarah replied, from far away. Stone Knife spoke to the boy, who listened solemnly before running back to his friends, clearly disappointed that Sarah wasn't a supernatural being. "You speak good English," Sarah observed. "I was taken to white man's school as child," Stone Knife explained, his tone revealing nothing of how he felt about that experience. 5 years before I escaped home." "Escaped?" Stone Knife's face hardened slightly. "They cut our hair, beat us for speaking Apache, said our ways were devil ways." He gestured toward the camp. "This is freedom. Your schools were prison." Sarah had no response to that uncomfortable truth. Her own schoolteacher had spoken of civilizing the savage Indians as a Christian duty. Wise Raven called Sarah back to work. The afternoon was spent learning to prepare the deer meat, a messy task that left her hands stained with blood despite her care. By evening, Sarah's back ached from bending over cooking fires. Her fingers were burned from hot cooking stones, and her arms were exhausted from grinding corn. Yet when the communal meal was served, she felt an unexpected sense of accomplishment. Women and children sat in groups eating from shared cooking pots. Men gathered in their own circle. Sarah remained beside Wise Raven, uncertain of her place. 2 hawks brought them each a portion of the deer meat. "You did well today," he told, Sarah having observed her efforts from a distance. "My mother says you learn quickly. Coming from Wise Raven, this was high praise indeed." Sarah felt a small glow of pride. "Tomorrow," 2 hawks continued, "more learning." He pointed to a basket of plant materials, weaving. As darkness fell over the camp, distant singing began, men's voices in a rhythmic chant that echoed against the canyon walls. Sarah listened, finding unexpected beauty in the alien melody. "What are they singing?" she asked 2 hawks. "Thanks to Creator," he explained, "for successful hunt, for safety of people." He hesitated, then added, "for wisdom to know right path." Sarah wondered if that last part referred to her presence among them. The path ahead remained uncertain, but she had survived another day. In this harsh land, that alone was victory. Week passed. Sarah's hands grew calloused from Apache work, her skin darkened by the desert sun. Each day brought new lessons. Weaving baskets tight enough to carry water, tanning hides with deer brains and smoke, identifying edible plants among the sparse canyon vegetation. Some women in the camp remained coldly distant, but others had begun to accept her presence, occasionally offering guidance when Wise Raven wasn't watching. On the 8th morning, 2 hawks appeared with something unexpected, a small hunting bow, shorter and lighter than a warrior's weapon. "Today, different learning," he announced. "Hunting small game." Sarah took the bow hesitantly. "I don't know how to use this." "I teach," Two Hawks replied simply. "All Apache learn." Sarah noticed Swift Deer watching them, her expression disapproving. The young woman had made no secret of her resentment toward the white visitor. Now she approached, speaking rapidly to Two Hawks in Apache. Though Sarah couldn't understand the words, the tone was clear: challenge and derision. Two Hawks listened impassively before responding with a few short sentences. Swift Deer's eyes flashed with anger, but she retreated without further argument. "What did she say?" Sarah asked. "Says white woman should not learn Apache hunting ways," Two Hawks translated, his expression neutral. "Says you will use knowledge against our people when you leave." "And what did you tell her?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "That even white woman must eat. Better you hunt rabbit than we feed you." They left the camp, heading toward a stretch of scrubland where prickly pear and mesquite provided cover for small game. Several curious children followed at a distance until Wise Raven called them back. Stone Knife, however, joined them, ostensibly to hunt, though Sarah suspected he'd been assigned to watch her. Two Hawks began with the basics: how to hold the bow, how to nock an arrow, how to draw the string with fingers rather than arm strength. Sarah's first attempt sent arrows flying wildly, disappearing into desert brush. Stone Knife retrieved them, his expression carefully neutral, though Sarah thought she detected amusement in his eyes. "Steady hands," Two Hawks instructed. "Breathe. Slow. Feel arrow as part of arm." Sarah tried again, concentrating on keeping her breathing even. The arrow flew straighter this time, though still wide of the cactus they'd been using as a target. "Better," Two Hawks approved. Again. As the morning progressed, Sarah's arms began to ache from the unaccustomed exertion. Yet with each attempt, her arrows flew truer. She recalled childhood lessons with her father's old rifle, the same principles of steady breathing and careful aim applied, though the weapon was different. "My father taught me to shoot," she told Two Hawks during a brief rest. "He said a frontier woman needs to protect herself." Two Hawks nodded understanding. "Wise father, dangerous land." "He wanted sons," Sarah admitted. "Got 3 daughters instead. Said he'd make the best of it by teaching us what boys would learn." "Apache girls learn hunt too," Two Hawks said. "Small game for family. Not war party, but important skill. Their conversation was interrupted by movement in the brush. Two Hawks signaled for silence, pointing to a jackrabbit frozen in momentary vigilance some 30 yards away. "Your try," he whispered, handing Sarah a freshly nocked arrow. Sarah's heart pounded as she carefully raised the bow. The rabbit remained still, alert, but not yet frightened. She drew the string, sighted along the arrow, and released on an exhaled breath. The arrow flew true, striking the ground just inches from the rabbit, which bounded away in explosive panic. "Close," Two Hawks commented, genuine approval in his voice. "Very close for first hunt." Stone Knife, who had been watching silently, spoke up. "Better than many Apache children first time." His unexpected praise warmed Sarah more than she would have expected. The morning continued with tracking lessons: how to spot the nearly invisible signs of animal passage, how to identify droppings and determine their freshness, how to predict where game might seek water or shade. Near midday they discovered fresh turkey tracks. Two Hawks gestured for Sarah to follow as he moved silently through the brush, teaching by example rather than words. Stone Knife circled wide, acting as a flanking hunter. Sarah did her best to mimic Two Hawks' careful foot placement and measured breathing. They spotted the wild turkey scratching beneath a mesquite tree. Two Hawks silently offered Sarah another arrow, but she shook her head, recognizing her skill wasn't yet equal to the longer shot. With fluid motion, he drew his own bow and loosed an arrow that took the bird cleanly. Before retrieving the turkey, Two Hawks knelt briefly, murmuring what Sarah recognized as a prayer of thanks. Stone Knife did the same. After a moment's hesitation, Sarah joined them, bowing her head in respect for the life taken to sustain their own. The simple gesture didn't go unnoticed. Stone Knife's expression softened slightly, and Two Hawks nodded approval. Important to honor spirit of animal, Two Hawks explained as he expertly prepared the turkey for carrying. Not just kill, give thanks. On their return to camp, they encountered a hunting party led by Running Fox. The warrior's eyes narrowed at the sight of Sarah carrying the small bow. He spoke sharply to Two Hawks, gesturing towards Sarah and the weapon. Two Hawks responded calmly but firmly. Though Sarah couldn't understand their exchange, the tension was clear. "What's wrong?" she asked when Running Fox and his party continued on their way, casting suspicious glances back at her. "He says I should not teach white woman Apache ways," Two Hawks translated. "Says when you leave you take knowledge to our enemies." "I wouldn't do that," Sarah protested. Stone Knife studied her thoughtfully. "Perhaps not by choice. But soldiers have ways to make people talk." The observation hung. Between them, an uncomfortable truth. Sarah realized that despite the small acceptance she'd begun to find, fundamental distrust remained, not without reason, given the history between their peoples. As they approached the camp, several warriors gathered to inspect their catch. Sarah's presence with a hunting bow drew mixed reactions, some frowning disapproval, others showing mild curiosity. Swiftdeer watched from the cooking area, her expression unreadable. When Two Hawks presented the turkey to Wise Raven, his mother nodded with satisfaction. She spoke briefly to Sarah, gesturing for her to help prepare the bird. "She says you are learning well," Two Hawks translated. "Says maybe not useless white woman after all." Coming from Wise Raven, this qualified praise represented significant progress. Sarah felt an unexpected surge of pride as she set to work, plucking the turkey, her sore muscles testament to the day's efforts. That night, as turkey stew simmered over the cooking fire, Sarah realized something had shifted. She was no longer merely surviving among the Apache. She was beginning to understand their ways, to appreciate the deep wisdom in their relationship with the harsh desert. Whether they would ever truly accept her remained uncertain, but she had taken first steps on a path she'd never imagined walking. 2 weeks into Sarah's stay with the Apache, the rhythm of camp life was disrupted by the return of scouts with troubling news. Sarah watched from Wise Raven's cooking fire as 3 warriors rode in on lathered ponies, their expressions grim. Chief Black Knife emerged from his wickiup to hear their report, his face growing darker with each word. The camp erupted in controlled activity, women gathering essential belongings, men checking weapons, children being hushed by anxious mothers. Two Hawks approached Sarah, his manner more formal than it had been in recent days. "Cavalry soldiers," he explained tersely. 2 days' ride from here. Many men, many guns." Sarah felt conflicting emotions surge through her. Hope at the prospect of returning to her own kind, fear for the Apache who had sheltered her. "Are they looking for me? Maybe just hunting Apache." Two Hawks studied her face. "Council meets now. You come." The tribal council had gathered around the central fire pit, faces solemn in the afternoon light. Sarah felt the weight of their stares as Two Hawks led her into their circle. She recognized a brass cavalry button clutched in the lead scout's and evidence of his findings. Chief Black Knife addressed her directly in his limited English. "Soldiers come, looking for white people. You want go to them?" The directness of the question caught Sarah off guard. 2 weeks ago, she would have answered without hesitation. Now, uncertainty clouded her thoughts. I don't know. Are they searching for survivors from my wagon train?" Two Hawks translated her question for the council. The scout who had returned with the button responded at length. "He says soldiers ask about white woman at trading post." Two Hawks translated. "Show paper with drawing. Maybe you." Sarah's breath caught. "A poster with my picture?" Not picture. Words. Description. Sarah's sister must have reported her missing when the remnants of the wagon train reached California. The thought of family searching for her brought a lump to her throat. Running Fox spoke harshly, pointing at Sarah with barely concealed hostility. Others joined in, voices rising in debate. Sarah caught only fragments of meaning, but the division in the council was clear. Some believed she should be sent to meet the soldiers. Others feared such contact would reveal their location. They argue about what to do, Two Hawks explained. Unnecessarily. Some say soldiers only want you, will leave Apache alone if they find you. Others say soldiers always want more, land, gold, death of Apache. Both arguments held truth, Sarah knew. Some cavalry units were led by men who viewed all Indians as hostile enemies to be eliminated. Others maintained uneasy peace with tribes, who stayed on designated lands. "What do you think?" she asked Two Hawks quietly. He met her gaze steadily. "I think you must decide. Your people search for you, but path is dangerous." Stone Knife joined the conversation. These soldiers, led by Captain James Ellis, known to Apache as man who speaks with two tongues, makes treaties, breaks treaties. Sarah didn't recognize the name, but the description was all too familiar. Many frontier officers viewed agreements with Indians as temporary conveniences rather than binding commitments. Chief Blackknife raised his hand for silence. "Woman must decide," he declared. "Go or stay until full moon, as agreed." All eyes turned to Sarah. She felt the weight of their attention, understanding that her decision carried consequences beyond her own fate. If she left with the soldiers, would they follow her back to the Apache camp? If she stayed, would the search intensify, bringing more troops into Apache territory? "I need time to think," she said finally. The chief nodded. "Until tomorrow's sun. Then decide." As the council dispersed, Two Hawks walked with Sarah to the edge of the camp. For several minutes they stood in silence, watching the distant mountains turn purple with approaching evening. "If you go," Two Hawks said eventually, "better I take you part way. Meet soldiers away from camp. You would risk that for me?" His expression remained unreadable. "Safer for all." Sarah studied his face, seeing beyond the impassive mask he presented to others. In the past weeks, she had learned to recognize the subtle signs of his thoughts, the slight tightening around his eyes when concerned, the barely perceptible softening of his mouth when pleased. "Two Hawks," she said carefully, "these past weeks, I've learned so much from your people." "You learn well for white woman," he acknowledged, a hint of humor lightening his tone. "My husband wanted to reach California for gold," Sarah continued. "I was following his dream, not mine. Now," she gestured toward the camp, "I've seen a different way of living, harder in some ways. But there's wisdom here that my people have forgotten." Two Hawks considered her words. "Your sister waits for you, your place with your people." "Is it?" Sarah hadn't meant to speak the question aloud. She'd been raised to be a farmer's wife, then became a prospector's widow. What place waited for her in California? Another marriage to a man seeking fortune, a life bound by corsets and conventions that suddenly seemed as foreign as they were, a familiar. As twilight deepened around them, Sarah found herself sharing memories of her childhood in Kentucky. Her father's hardscrabble farm, her mother's early death, her sister's marriages. Two Hawks listened attentively, asking occasional questions that revealed his curiosity about white settlers' ways. In turn, he spoke of his training as a medicine man under his grandfather's guidance. Years of learning plants, stars, prayer, songs, and healing techniques. He described the vision quest that had given him his name when Two Hawks had circled above him for 3 days as he fasted on a mountain ledge. "My grandfather said Two Hawks mean balance," he explained. "Medicine. Man must walk between worlds, spirit world and human world. Now I walk between Apache world and white world." The personal disclosure surprised Sarah. Two Hawks rarely spoke of himself. "Is that why you saved me?" she asked. "Because of your name's meaning?" He considered this. "Maybe spirits arranged our meeting, or maybe just—" He shrugged, searching for the English word. "Chance." Their conversation was interrupted by Swift Deer, who approached with clear reluctance, delivering a message from Wise Raven. Sarah was needed to help prepare the evening meal. as Sarah turned to follow swift deer. Back to camp, Two Hawks touched her arm lightly. Whatever you decide, I help you reach safety. The simple promise carried weight beyond its words. That night, sleep eluded Sarah. The decision before her seemed impossible. Returning to her own people meant safety, civilization, family, all she had known before. Staying longer with the Apache meant uncertainty, danger, and eventual departure anyway, as the chief had made clear she could not remain permanently. Yet something held her back from the straightforward choice. In her short time among the Apache, she had glimpsed a different way of understanding the world, a perspective that recognized the sacred in everyday life, that moved in harmony with nature's rhythms rather than imposing human will upon the land. And there was Two Hawks himself. Sarah admitted privately what she had been reluctant to acknowledge. She had grown to care for him. His quiet strength, his deep knowledge, his careful teaching had awakened feelings she had never experienced with Thomas, her practical, ambitious husband. What those feelings might mean, where they might lead, she didn't know. Perhaps nowhere. The gulf between their worlds seemed uncrossable. Morning arrived with no clarity. Sarah helped Wise Raven prepare breakfast, her movements automatic as her thoughts circled endlessly. The older woman watched her with knowing eyes, but offered no counsel. When the council reassembled, Sarah still hadn't reached a decision. She stood before them, aware of the gravity of the moment. Chief Black Knife waited expectantly. Running Fox made no attempt to hide his impatience. Two Hawks remained expressionless, though Sarah sensed his tension. She began, then faltered. The decision was abruptly taken from her. A young warrior burst into the council circle, speaking rapidly in Apache. The effect on the gathering was immediate. Men reached for weapons. Women began gathering children. "What's happening?" Sarah asked urgently. "Cavalry patrol," Two Hawks answered, his voice low and controlled. "Close, very close. Scouts spotted. Them in North Canyon. What will you do? Hide? Move camp?" His eyes met hers, serious and direct. "You must decide now. Go to soldiers or come with us." The immediate danger crystallized Sarah's thoughts. If she went to the soldiers now, the Apache would have little time to relocate. The patrol might track them, leading to confrontation. People who had sheltered her, taught her, fed her, including children and elders, could be killed or captured. "I'll stay with you," she said firmly. "Help you move camp. When you're safe, then I'll decide about finding the soldiers." Relief flickered in Two Hawks' eyes. He nodded once, then turned to relay her decision to the chief. Black Knife studied Sarah intently before giving a single nod of approval. The camp dissolved into efficient activity. Within an hour, wiki-ups were dismantled, belongings packed onto travois pulled by the few horses the band possessed. Children carried what they could, even the smallest, contributing to the group effort. Sarah worked alongside Wise Raven, helping to pack cooking implements and food stores. Two Hawks approached as they prepared to depart. "You ride," he said, gesturing to a small pony. "Safer. Faster." Sarah had ridden occasionally back home, but never bareback. Still, she recognized the necessity. With Two Hawks' help, she mounted the pony, feeling precarious without saddle or reins. He showed her how to grip with her knees, how to use the single leather thong attached to the horse's lower jaw for guidance. The band moved out in disciplined silence, heading deeper into canyon country. Scouts ranged ahead and behind, alert for any sign of pursuit. Sarah's pony followed the others, requiring little direction from her. She watched in admiration as the Apache moved like shadows across the landscape, leaving minimal trace of their passage. By midday, they had traveled, miles from the original camp, working their way through narrow defiles and across rocky plateaus that left no tracks. Finally, they descended into a hidden valley much smaller than their previous location, but equally defensible, with good water and adequate forage for the horses. As the band established their new camp, Sarah helped where she could. The experience, of the past weeks had taught her much about Apache ways, and she worked with growing confidence, anticipating needs without requiring instruction. Two hawks found her helping to establish a cooking fire. "You made good choice," he said quietly, "staying." "I couldn't lead soldiers to your people," Sarah replied. "Not after all you've done for me." A rare smile touched his lips. "You learn not just Apache skills, learn Apache heart." The simple praise affected Sarah more deeply than she expected. She had indeed changed during her time with the tribe, viewing the world through different eyes, understanding relationships between people and land in ways her upbringing had never taught. That evening, as the relocated camp settled into uneasy vigilance, Running Fox approached Sarah. His usual hostility seemed muted. "Today you choose Apache over white soldiers," he said in halting English. "Why?" Sarah considered her answer carefully. "Your people saved my life, taught me, fed me. I couldn't bring danger to you." Running Fox studied her face, searching for deception. Finding none, he gave a small nod. "Tomorrow I teach you better hiding from soldiers," he said finally. "You still walk too loud." Coming from Running Fox, this qualified offer represented significant acceptance. Sarah nodded gratefully, recognizing the gesture for what it was, a small bridge across a vast cultural divide. Later, as stars appeared in the desert sky, two hawks joined Sarah at the edge of camp. For a time, they sat in comfortable silence, listening to night sounds, the soft hooting of an owl, the distant yip of coyotes, the whisper of wind through juniper branches. "Tomorrow we learn if soldiers follow," Two Hawks said eventually. "If. Safe. I take you to trading post in 5 days. Meet sisters' people there, send message to California." The practical plan should have relieved Sarah. Instead, she felt a curious hollowness at the thought of leaving. "And if it's not safe?" Two Hawks shrugged. "Then we wait, hide. Apache good at hiding." He glanced at her, his expression softening in the starlight. Sarah good at learning. Their hands rested side by side on the rock where they sat, not quite touching. Sarah felt the warmth radiating from his skin, the rough calluses that spoke of a lifetime of survival in this harsh land, so different from her husband's hands, which had grown soft during their journey west, as he dreamed of easy riches. "Two hawks," she began, uncertain how to express the confusion in her heart. A sharp whistle cut through the night, a scout signal. Two Hawks was on his feet instantly, all attention focused on the sound. A second whistle followed, pitched differently. "What is it?" Sarah asked, rising beside him. "Riders." Two Hawks answered grimly. "Many riders, coming this way." The cavalry patrol had found their trail. The camp transformed in moments from peaceful settlement to battle-ready unit. Children and elders were quickly ushered into hiding places among the rocks. Warriors armed themselves, their movements fluid with practiced precision. Women gathered essential supplies, preparing for possible flight. "Come," Two Hawks urged Sarah, leading her toward a narrow crevice in the canyon wall. "Hide here." Sarah resisted. "I can help. I know soldiers. Maybe I can talk to them." Two Hawks shook his head urgently. "Not soldiers," he corrected. "Different sound. Comanche." A chill ran through Sarah. The Comanche were legendary for their fighting prowess and brutal raids. Even other tribes feared them. "Why would they attack?" "You?" she asked, allowing Two Hawks to guide her toward the hiding place. "Old enemies, raiding for horses, women." His expression was grim. "They find white woman. Worse for you than Apache." The implications were clear. Sarah ducked into the crevice, which widened into a small cave, just large enough for several people. Inside she found Wise Raven and 4 small children already huddled in the darkness. Two Hawks pressed something into her hands. A knife with a bone handle carved with symbols she didn't recognize. "Enemy warrior necklace," he explained quickly. "Powerful protection. Stay silent, no matter what here." Before she could respond, he was gone, melting into the night with supernatural silence. Sarah clutched the knife, feeling the smooth bone handle warm beneath her fingers. Around her, The children whimpered softly until Wise Raven shushed them with gentle authority. The waiting was unbearable. Minutes stretched like hours as they huddled in darkness. Sarah strained to hear what was happening outside, but the thick rock walls muffled all sound. The children pressed against her and Wise Raven, seeking comfort in human contact. Then, without warning, chaos erupted. War cries pierced the night, high, ululating screams that raised the hair on Sarah's neck. The sounds of conflict followed. Horses' panicked whinnies, men shouting in two different languages, the sharp report of a rifle. A small boy began to cry in earnest. His sister, barely older, tried to quiet him. Wise Raven spoke soothingly, but the child's fear overwhelmed his control. Sarah recognized the danger. His cries might reveal their hiding place. Acting on instinct, she gathered the boy into her arms, rocking him gently as she had once done with her youngest sister. "Shh," she whispered against his hair. "Shh, little un." Though he couldn't understand her words, her tone seemed to calm him. His sobs subsided to hiccuping breaths. Sarah continued rocking, humming softly. A lullaby her mother had sung years ago in Kentucky. A shadow darkened the entrance to their hiding place. Sarah's grip tightened on the knife, her body tensing to protect the children. The shadow resolved into a woman's form, swift deer, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. "Come," she gasped in broken English. "This place not safe. Fire." Sarah smelled it then, the acrid scent of burning wickiups. Smoke would soon fill their rocky shelter. Wise Raven immediately organized the children, her authority unquestioned despite the crisis. Swift Deer led the way, with Sarah bringing up the rear. Knife clutched in white-knuckled fingers, they emerged into nightmarish confusion. Several wickiups burned, illuminating the scene in hellish orange light. Apache warriors fought desperately against mounted attackers who swept through the camp with terrifying speed and precision. Sarah glimpsed two hawks in hand-to-hand combat with a Comanche warrior, both men bleeding from multiple wounds. "This way," Swift Deer hissed, leading them toward a narrow path that wound up the canyon wall. They had covered perhaps half the distance when disaster struck. A Comanche rider spotted them, wheeling his pony toward the vulnerable group with predatory intent. Swift Deer pushed the children behind her, facing the rider with nothing but a stone knife. Sarah made a split-second decision. Stepping forward, she positioned herself beside Swift Deer. Together they formed a human barrier between the children and the approaching warrior. The Comanche fighter was young, perhaps 20, his face painted for war, his expression triumphant. As he bore down on what he clearly considered easy prey, he carried a lance decorated with scalps, the grisly trophies swinging with his movement. Time seemed to slow. Sarah saw the warrior's eyes widen in surprise at her appearance, a white woman among the Apache. His momentary hesitation gave Swift Deer the opening she needed. With a courage born of desperation, she lunged at the pony's legs, slashing with her stone knife. The animal reared, throwing its rider off balance. Sarah acted without thinking, driving Two Hawk's knife upward as the warrior tumbled from his mount. She felt the blade connect, saw the shock in the young man's eyes as he fell at her feet. Swift Deer finished what Sarah had begun, her face set in grim determination. When she rose, she wore the warrior's necklace of bear claws and human teeth, a trophy that would mark this night forever. "Go!" she ordered the children, who had watched the deadly encounter with wide, frightened eyes. "Up!" They scrambled up the path, following Wise Raven's lead. Sarah moved to follow, but Swift Deer caught her arm. "You fight for Apache children," she said, her voice carrying reluctant respect. "Why?" Sarah had no ready answer. "They're innocent," she managed finally, "like all children." Swift Deer studied her for a moment, then nodded once, acknowledgement rather than agreement. Together they continued up the path to a small plateau where other women and children had gathered. From this vantage point, Sarah could see the entire battle. The Apache fought valiantly, but they were outnumbered. Several bodies lay motionless around the burning wickiups. She searched desperately for Two Hawks, but couldn't locate him among the combatants. A new sound cut through the chaos, the rhythmic pounding of many horses at full gallop. From the northern canyon entrance, riders appeared, their uniforms visible, even in the uncertain light. Cavalry. Soldiers, Sarah whispered, hope and dread mingling in her heart. The battlefield dynamic shifted instantly. The Comanche, caught between Apache defenders and cavalry attackers, began a fighting retreat. The soldiers, with no apparent concern for distinguishing friend from foe, fired indiscriminately at any native they spotted. Down! Swift Deer pulled Sarah flat against the rock as bullets ricocheted nearby. Soldiers kill all Indians, no questions. The terrible truth of her statement became evident as Sarah watched the cavalry charge through the camp, firing at fleeing Comanche and Apache alike. This was no rescue mission. It was an opportunity to eliminate hostiles without the complication of determining tribal affiliations. Sarah's thoughts flew to Two Hawks. Had he escaped? Was he among the fallen? The not knowing was unbearable. Child screams snapped her attention back to their immediate surroundings. A Comanche warrior, separated from his companions, had discovered their hiding place. He advanced on the huddled women and children, a bloody knife in his hand. Before Sarah or Swift Deer could react, a figure interposed itself between the warrior and his intended victims. Stone Knife, bleeding heavily from a shoulder wound but still standing. The two men circled each other, exchanging words in a language Sarah didn't understand. Then they clashed in a brutal struggle that ended quickly when Stone Knife drove his blade into his opponent's chest. Stone Knife staggered, clearly weakened by blood loss. Sarah rushed to support him, tearing strips from her dress to bind his wound. Two Hawks, she asked urgently as she worked. Have you seen him? Fighting near Spring, Stone Knife managed, his breathing labored. Many enemies. Swift Deer took charge. We go higher, she declared. More safe from soldiers, Comanche. They helped Stone Knife up a steeper path that led to a cave high in the canyon wall, a prepared refuge stocked with water and dried food. Other survivors had already gathered there, including several wounded warriors being tended by the older women. Two Hawks was not among them. Below, the battle continued. The cavalry had dismounted, using the abandoned wickiups for cover, as they exchanged fire with Comanche warriors who had regrouped at the canyon's southern end. Caught between were the remaining Apache fighters, fighting for survival against enemies on both sides. Sarah stood at the cave entrance, searching the chaotic scene for any sign of Two Hawks. The knife he had given her remained clutched in her, and its bone handle slick with blood, Comanche blood. She had killed a man tonight. The realization should have horrified her, yet all she felt was a cold determination to survive, and to find Two Hawks. He is strong warrior, Wise Raven said quietly, joining Sarah at her vigil. Strong spirit. I have to find him, Sarah replied, her decision already made. Wise Raven's weathered hand closed around Sarah's wrist with surprising strength. No, too dangerous. I can talk to the soldiers, Sarah insisted. I'm white. They'll listen to me. Soldiers see white woman with Indians, think captive, Stone Knife warned from where he sat propped against the cave wall. Shoot Apache trying to save you. The truth of his assessment was undeniable, yet Sarah couldn't abandon Two Hawks to his fate. She opened her mouth to argue further, when Swift Deer's sharp intake of breath drew her attention. Look, the young woman said, pointing toward the spring. There, illuminated by burning wickiups, two figures struggled in mortal combat. Two Hawks and a cavalry officer, the latter's saber flashing in the firelight against Two Hawks' knife. Sarah watched in horror as Two Hawks and the cavalry officer circled each other beside the spring. The officer, a lieutenant by his insignia, slashed with his saber, driving Two Hawks back toward the water's edge. Though skilled with his knife, Two Hawks was clearly at a disadvantage against the longer blade. "I have to help him," Sarah said. Moving toward the cave entrance, Swift Deer caught her arm. "How? You die too." The young Apache woman was right. Sarah had no weapon beyond the bloody knife, no way to reach Two Hawks through the chaos of battle. Yet she couldn't simply watch him die. A rifle shot cracked through the night. The cavalry officer stumbled, then fell. From the shadows emerged Running Fox, a captured cavalry carbine in his hands. He motioned urgently to Two Hawks, pointing. "And toward the southern canyon exit. They escape," Stone Knife said, relief evident in his voice despite his pain. Sarah strained to follow Two Hawks' progress as he and Running Fox slipped from shadow to shadow, working their way toward the canyon's southern passage. More Apache warriors materialized from hiding places, forming a retreating group that moved. With the fluid coordination of long practice, they go to winter camp, Wise Raven explained, her English halting but clear. "Secret place. Very far." Sarah's heart sank. If Two Hawks reached this distant sanctuary, she might never see him again. Yet his survival mattered more than her feelings. Dawn approached, its first grey light revealing the full extent of the devastation below. Bodies lay scattered among the smouldering remains of Wickiups. Cavalry soldiers were gathering their dead and wounded while maintaining a defensive perimeter. The Comanche had vanished as completely as the escaping Apache. "What happens to us?" Sarah asked, gesturing to the cave's occupants, mostly women, children, and the wounded. Stone Knife's expression was grim. "Soldiers find us, take to reservation, or kill." He shifted, wincing as the movement reopened his wound. "You go to soldiers, say captive. They believe white woman. And leave you all to die or be imprisoned? No." Swift Deer studied Sarah with new respect. What then? Sarah's mind raced. The cavalry wouldn't abandon their search easily. A lieutenant's death would demand retribution. The cave couldn't sustain its occupants for long, and the wounded needed better care than they could receive here. "We need to reach the winter camp," she decided. "All of us." Wise Raven shook her head. "Too far. Too dangerous." "More dangerous to stay," Sarah countered. "The soldiers will search every canyon." A brief discussion in Apache followed. Sarah caught familiar words: wounded, children, soldiers, but couldn't follow the rapid exchange. Finally, Stone Knife spoke in English for her benefit. "Some agree with you, some say split up. Healthy people go to winter camp, wounded and children hide closer." Sarah considered this option. "How would you find each other again?" "Apache always find family," Wise Raven said simply. The discussion was interrupted by a child's warning. Soldiers were ascending the path toward their hiding place. Decisions had to be made instantly. "I go to soldiers," Sarah said firmly. "Distract them. You escape." Before anyone could object, she pressed Two Hawks' knife into Swift Deer's hands and moved toward the cave entrance. Swift Deer caught her sleeve. "Why help Apache?" she demanded. "You white woman." Sarah met her eyes steadily. "Two Hawks saved my life. Now I save his people." Something passed between the two women, an understanding beyond words. Swift Deer released Sarah's sleeve, then reached up to remove the carved bone star compass that hung around her neck. "For find way," she said, placing it in Sarah's palm. "Stars always show path." The gift startled Sarah. This was no small trinket, but a valued possession with spiritual significance. She closed her fingers around it, nodding acknowledgement of both the practical and symbolic meaning. Stone Knife issued rapid instructions. The cave's occupants began gathering minimal supplies for their journey. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped out onto the path, deliberately making noise to draw the soldiers' attention away from the cave's interior. "Hello," she called. "American woman here. Don't shoot." The response was immediate. Rifles trained. On her position, voices calling for her to raise her hands. Sarah complied, walking slowly down the path toward the approaching soldiers. "My name is Sarah Miller," she announced as she came face to face with a sergeant whose weathered features registered shock at finding a white woman. "I was separated from the Henderson wagon train 2 months ago. Ma'am, are you hurt? Did these savages harm you?" The sergeant's concern seemed genuine. "No, I'm unharmed. The Apache found me dying in the desert and saved my life." Sarah infused her voice with calm certainty. "They've treated me with nothing but kindness." The sergeant's expression turned suspicious. "Apache don't show kindness to whites, ma'am. Stockholm Syndrome, more likely. Doctor at the fort will help you." Sarah ignored this. "The fighting last night. The Comanche attacked the Apache camp. Your men fired on everyone, including women and children. Couldn't tell 'em apart in the dark, ma'am. All hostiles to us." The sergeant gestured to his men. "Search the area. Must be more of 'em hiding." "They're gone," Sarah said firmly. "Fled during the night. I was left behind because I couldn't keep up." The lie came easily, driven by necessity. "They're heading north toward the mountains." Another lie, pointing in the opposite direction of the actual escape route. The sergeant studied her face, clearly uncertain whether to believe her. "We'll get you back to Fort Benson, ma'am. Captain Ellis will want to debrief you." Captain Ellis. Sarah remembered Stone Knife's warning about the officer known as Man Who Speaks with Two Tongues. "Yes, ma'am. Been leading the search for survivors from your wagon train. Especially when we heard a white woman might be alive among the Apache." As the soldiers escorted her down the mountain path, Sarah glanced back once. Swift Deer stood momentarily visible at the cave entrance, the women and children ready to move out behind her. Their eyes met in silent communication before Swift Deer melted back into the shadows, leading her people to safety. Sarah clutched the star compass in her pocket. Somehow, she would find her way back to Two Hawks. But first, she had to navigate the equally dangerous territory of Fort Benson and Captain Ellis. Fort Benson proved to be little more than a collection of rough-hewn buildings surrounded by a wooden palisade. As the patrol escorted Sarah through its gates, curious faces appeared in doorways and windows. A white woman rescued from Indians was clearly an unusual sight. Captain Ellis met them in the fort's dusty central yard, a tall man with cold eyes and a precisely trimmed mustache. His uniform was immaculate despite the frontier conditions, his bearing rigid with military discipline. "Mrs. Miller," he greeted her with a shallow bow. "A pleasure to find you alive. We've been searching since receiving word from your sister in San Francisco." "Thank you, Captain," Sarah replied cautiously. "I'm grateful for your efforts. I'm sure you've been through quite an ordeal." His voice carried practiced sympathy that didn't reach his eyes. "Dr. Harrison will examine you, and then I'd appreciate a full account of your captivity." Sarah bristled at the implication. "I wasn't a captive, Captain. The Apache saved my life and treated me with respect." Ellis's expression hardened slightly. "Of course, we can discuss the details later." The fort doctor, a kind-faced man with spectacles and a grey-streaked beard, examined Sarah in the small infirmary. Unlike the captain, his concern seemed genuine. "No signs of mistreatment," he noted with evident surprise. "You're suffering from exposure and minor malnutrition, but otherwise in remarkable health considering your ordeal." "The Apache are skilled healers," Sarah explained. "Their medicine man treated my wounds and taught me which plants provided nourishment." Dr. Harrison raised an eyebrow. "Medicine man, you say? Most interesting. I've had limited success communicating with tribal healers. Their knowledge of local botanicals is quite impressive, though their spiritual practices are rather primitive." Sarah bit back a defense of Two Hawks' sophisticated understanding of both medicinal plants and the human spirit. The doctor meant well, but his perspective was typically limited. After her examination, Sarah was provided with a proper dress, donated by the quartermaster's wife, and a simple meal in the officers' mess. Captain Ellis joined her as she finished eating, a leather portfolio in his hands. "Mrs. Miller, I hope you're feeling restored," he began, seating himself across from her. I need to ask you some questions about your time with the Apache. Any information you can provide about their numbers, locations, and movements would be invaluable. Sarah had anticipated this. I'm afraid I can't be much help, Captain. I was kept in their camp and knew little of their broader movements. Ellis's smile didn't reach his eyes. Surely you observed something of military value during your stay with them. They treated me with kindness, Sarah replied firmly. I won't repay that by helping you hunt them down. The captain's facade of politeness slipped. Mrs. Miller, these savages have killed dozens of settlers and soldiers. Just last night they murdered Lieutenant Parker, a fine young officer with a family waiting back east. Your lieutenant was killed while attacking an Apache who was defending his people from Comanche raiders, Sarah corrected, her voice level, despite her racing heart. Your men fired indiscriminately at both tribes, including women and children. Ellis's face flushed with anger. You seem to have developed an unhealthy sympathy for these primitives. Perhaps more troubling than Stockholm Syndrome. Perhaps I've simply seen a different side of them than you have, Captain. Their standoff was interrupted by a courier bringing dispatches. Ellis excused himself curtly, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts. That evening, she was informed that a supply wagon would depart for Tucson in 3 days, from where she could arrange transportation to California. Until then, she was given quarters in a small room adjacent to the laundry. For 2 days, Sarah endured repeated interviews with Captain Ellis, revealing nothing of value while learning much about the military's intentions. The captain made little effort to hide his disdain for the Apache or his determination to drive them from lands newly discovered to contain silver deposits. Age had not diminished his commanding presence, though new lines of worry creased his weathered face. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of Sarah, but he offered no comment as Running Fox explained their arrival in Rapid Apache. 2 Hawks stepped forward respectfully. Chief Blackknife, we bring important news. Captain Ellis plans attack on all free Apache bands while speaking peace words. How you know this? The chief asked, his gaze shifting to Sarah. 2 Hawks removed the captured orders from his bag, offering them with both hands. Paper talk from White Chief to Ellis. Sarah Miller took from scouts hunting Apache. Blackknife examined the document, unable to read the English text, but understanding the map with its marked locations, including their current position. This could be trick, Running Fox argued. White woman brings paper to trap Apache. Sarah met his suspicious glare steadily. I risked my life to bring this warning. Why would I do that if I meant you harm? To spy. To learn mountain paths for soldiers, Running Fox countered. The gathering warriors murmured agreement, their distrust palpable in the firelit clearing. 2 Hawks stood protectively beside Sarah, but even his status as medicine man might not be enough to counter generations of justified suspicion. With deliberate movements, 2 Hawks unwrapped the medicine pipe. A hush fell over the assembled Apache as he held it up for all to see. I call for pipe ceremony, he announced formally. Truth smoke between all present. Chief Blackknife's eyebrows rose. The invocation of the sacred pipe ceremony could not be refused without grave insult to the spirits themselves. He nodded slowly. Prepare fire circle. All council members gather. The next hour passed in solemn preparation. A special fire was built at the center of the clearing, wood selected for minimal smoke. The council members, 7 men and 3 women of respected age and wisdom, arranged themselves in a circle. 2 Hawks and Sarah were given places opposite. Chief Blackknife. When all was ready, 2 Hawks prepared the pipe with a mixture of tobacco and sacred herbs, his movements deliberate and ceremonial. He offered the pipe to the 4 directions, to the Sky Father and Earth Mother, before lighting it with a coal from the fire. Drawing the first breath, he exhaled the smoke in a thin stream, before passing the pipe to Sarah. A murmur ran through the council at this unprecedented inclusion of an outsider, but no one objected aloud. Sarah had been carefully instructed by 2 Hawks on the proper protocol. She accepted the pipe respectfully, drew a small amount of smoke into her mouth without inhaling, and released it upward before passing the pipe to the next person. When the pipe had made its full circle and returned to Two Hawks, he spoke in formal Apache, then translated for Sarah's benefit. "The smoke carries our words to the spirits. Any who speak lies now bring curse upon themselves and their children. I, Two Hawks, grandson of Tall Pine, speak only truth beneath the stars." He described finding Sarah in the canyon, their time at the sacred spring, the Comanche attack and cavalry response, their journey to the trading post, and the discovery of Ellis's plans. Sarah added her observations of the fort and the captain's character, explaining how the doctor had warned them of the impending campaign. When they finished, silence held the circle. Chief Blackknife studied them both, wisdom and caution evident in his gaze. Finally he spoke. "The pipe has witnessed your words. I find no lie in them." He turned to the council. "We must prepare our people for this new threat." Running Fox leaned forward. "And the white woman? What of her?" All eyes turned to Sarah. Her future, perhaps her very life, hung on the council's decision. 3 days after the pipe ceremony, Sarah stood at the edge of the Apache mountain camp, watching as families prepared to move deeper into the wilderness. Chief Blackknife had decided to split the band into smaller groups, harder to track, easier to hide, while sending messengers to warn other Apache bands of Ellis's coming campaign. The council's decision regarding Sarah had been unexpected. Rather than viewing her as either threat or captive, they had recognized a third possibility: bridge builder. With knowledge of both worlds, she and Two Hawks were uniquely positioned to serve as intermediaries, translating not just language, but intentions and cultural meanings. Wise Raven approached, carrying something wrapped in trade cloth. "For you," she said, in her limited English, offering the bundle to Sarah. Sarah unwrapped it to find a wedding blanket of extraordinary craftsmanship, half woven in traditional Apache patterns, half incorporating designs reminiscent of the quilts Sarah had described from her Kentucky childhood. "Two Hawks tell me your marriage ways," Wise Raven explained. "Apache ways different. This blanket both ways together." Tears welled in Sarah's eyes as she recognized the profound acceptance this gift represented. "Thank you," she whispered, embracing the older woman in a gesture that transcended language. Two Hawks found them thus, his expression softening at the sight of the blanket. "My mother's hands speak what her English cannot," he observed. "It's beautiful," Sarah said, carefully refolding the precious gift. "When did she find time to make this?" "Women work while council talks," Wise Raven replied with a hint of humor. "Always been way of things." Their conversation was interrupted by a scout's arrival. The young warrior spoke rapidly to Two Hawks, whose expression grew serious as he listened. "What is it?" Sarah asked when the scout departed. "Soldiers at trading post," Two Hawks translated. "Many soldiers, and," he hesitated, "man in black. Coat, government man." "An Indian agent," Sarah realized. "They're supposed to oversee treaties and tribal relations." Two Hawks nodded. "Scout says he brings paper talk for Chief Blackknife. Peace talk, maybe. Or surrender demands," Sarah added. Grimly, words spread quickly through the camp. Chief Blackknife called his council together, including Two Hawks and, significantly, Sarah. As they gathered in the chief's wickiup, opinions divided sharply. Some advocated ignoring the summons entirely, disappearing deeper into the mountains. Others argued for sending warriors to observe, but not engage. "What does White Woman say?" Running Fox asked unexpectedly, looking directly at Sarah. Though still suspicious, he had developed a grudging respect for her insights. Sarah considered carefully before answering. "If it's truly peace they seek, ignoring them means war. If it's surrender they demand, meeting them unprepared is dangerous." She paused. "But there might be a third path." "Speak," Chief Blackknife encouraged. "Send Two Hawks and me as messengers," Sarah proposed. I'm known to them, to Ellis and the doctor. Two Hawks knows Apache wishes. Together we can discover their true intentions without risking the chief or many warriors. Murmurs circulated through the council. The suggestion was unprecedented, but offered clear advantages. After lengthy discussion, Chief Blackknife nodded his approval. Two Hawks and Sarah Miller go as voice of Apache, he declared. Listen to White Chief words, return with truth. That evening, as preparations were made for their departure at dawn, Sarah and Two Hawks sat beside a small fire outside their wickiup. The wedding blanket lay across their laps, not yet used in formal ceremony, but a promise of what might come if they survived the dangerous days ahead. "You not afraid?" Two Hawks asked, watching embers rise toward the star-filled sky. "Terrified," Sarah admitted, "but also hopeful. For the first time I see a possible future for us both. Not just survival, but purpose." Two Hawks nodded understanding. Bridge builders need strong hearts, stand in river between worlds, feet in both currents. Sarah leaned against his shoulder, drawing strength from his solid presence. "Whatever happens at the trading post, we face it together." Dawn brought a small ceremony. Chief Blackknife presented Two Hawks with formal symbols of his authority to speak for the Apache, an eagle feather and a small pouch of sacred pollen. To Sarah's surprise, Wise Raven stepped forward with a gift for her as well, a beaded hair, ornament traditionally worn by Apache women of high status. "You carry Apache heart now," the older woman said as she fastened it in Sarah's hair. "Spirits recognize you." Their journey to the trading post took most of the day, traveling cautiously through terrain now patrolled by cavalry scouts. As the adobe buildings came into view, Sarah noted the significant military presence. At least 30 soldiers, their tents arranged in orderly rows behind the trading post. Two Hawks surveyed the scene with concern. "Many guns," he observed quietly. "But they've come to talk, not fight," Sarah pointed out. "Otherwise, why send an Indian agent?" They approached openly, Two Hawks carrying a white trader's cloth tied to a branch, a recognized symbol of parley. Soldiers spotted them immediately, rifles raising before an officer ordered them held in reserve. Captain Ellis emerged from the trading post, his cold eyes registering shock at the sight of Sarah riding beside Two Hawks. Behind him stood a thin man in a black coat, presumably the Indian agent, and to Sarah's relief, Dr. Harrison. "Mrs. Miller," Ellis called as they drew closer, "I see you've returned to civilization at last." "I come as translator for the Apache," Sarah replied formally. "Two Hawks speaks for Chief Blackknife." Ellis's expression hardened. "Does he indeed? And do you now consider yourself an Apache as well?" Before Sarah could respond, the Indian agent stepped forward. "I am Thomas Blackwood, appointed by the territorial governor to negotiate with the Chiricahua Apache." His manner was officious, but not overtly hostile. "Please convey to your associate that we bring terms for peace." Two Hawks, understanding enough English to follow the conversation, straightened proudly on his horse. "Apache, listen to true words," he said directly to Blackwood. "Not false. Promises." The agent seemed taken aback by Two Hawks' clear speech. Yes, of course. Shall we proceed inside?" "Mr. Thompson has offered his establishment for our discussions." As they dismounted, Dr. Harrison approached Sarah. "You look well," he observed quietly. "Your decision seems to agree with you." "It was the right path," Sarah confirmed, "though not an easy one." Harrison nodded thoughtfully. "Few worthy paths are easy, in my experience." Inside the trading post, Thompson had cleared the main room, setting up a rough table with chairs on either side. The symbolic arrangement was clear. Whites on one side, Apache on the other, with Sarah literally in the middle as translator. As Two Hawks placed his eagle feather and pollen pouch on the table, symbols of his authority and spiritual protection, Sarah realized they were attempting something unprecedented. True communication between worlds that had known only bloodshed and misunderstanding. Whether bridge or battlefield, this table would determine the future of both their peoples and their life together. 1 year later, Sarah and two hawks stood in the canyon where they had first met. The ancient walls still held their secrets, but the dusty ground where she had once lain dying now sprouted desert flowers after unusual spring rains. "Life finds a way," Two Hawks observed, his English now nearly as fluent as her Apache. The trading post had grown into a true meeting place, neutral ground where Apache and settler alike could trade fairly under the watchful eyes of the couple who bridged both worlds. Their small adobe home nearby combined elements of both cultures, as did their life together. Sarah knelt to gather medicinal herbs, her movements reflecting years of Apache teaching merged with her own heritage. Two Hawks watched with quiet pride, the new water gourd at his hip, a wedding gift from Chief Blackknife, gleaming in the sunlight. "Was it worth it?" Sarah asked suddenly. "All the danger, the disapproval from both sides?" Two Hawks smiled, taking her hand. "Mercy between enemies not only survived," he said, echoing the question that had haunted their first meeting. "It flourished." As if to punctuate his words, a thirsty traveler appeared on the canyon path. Without hesitation, Two Hawks offered his gourd. The cycle continued, one human connection at a time.